Hello everyone and welcome to part 3 of the What is Knowledge series of lectures on the epistemology unit, and today is mainly about Edmund Gettier. So remember where we're at. We're looking at how to define knowledge. What is knowledge? Last time we looked at this idea that it could be justified true belief, and then we considered whether the individual conditions are maybe not necessary, and we picked apart JTB in that way. And then we started to look at the idea that although we might have justified true belief, we might have JTB, maybe it's not sufficient to define knowledge. And then we started looking at responses to that too. And today, that's really where we're at. Mentioned briefly last time the person we're going to really focus in on today, and that's Edmund Gettier, who in a 2-page article really blew away this traditional definition of knowledge, justified true belief. And the approach that Gettier takes is to come up with counterexamples which actually illustrate that although we may well have J and T and B, we do not sometimes have knowledge. So his point is, and this has got to be the key thing that you all know, so JTB is not sufficient to define knowledge. So let's look at how Gettier goes about undermining JTB as a definition of knowledge. And he does this with his counterexamples. Now, these are just really strange situations that he invents to prove his point. And the first one is called Smith and Jones. And here on the left, we've got Smith. And it goes like this. So Smith and Jones go for a job interview. And at this interview, the boss, strangely, tells Smith that Jones will get the job. Now, somehow, and I don't know how, Smith sees that Jones has 10 coins in his pocket. So Smith forms the belief that the person who will get the job has 10 coins in his pocket. Now, what actually happens is that Smith is given the job, but as it happens, it turns out that Smith has 10 coins in his pocket. Now, can you see that we've, on the right-hand side, we're looking for those elements, the J, the T, and the B, and they're all here. So look at the one in which we've got a justified true belief. This is Smith forms the belief that the person who will get the job has 10 coins in his pocket. Now, it's a belief because he believes he's come to that knowledge. It's true because actually he himself has got 10 coins in his pocket. And it's justified because he's seen these 10 coins in someone else's pocket. So we have got justified true belief. But did Smith really know who was going to get the job? No, the answer's got to be no. So we have a situation and we've got J, T and B, but we have not got knowledge. Could we say that Smith knew who would get the job? No. This is a situation not of knowledge, but of lucky true beliefs. Okay, now on to Gettier's second counterexample, and it gets even stranger than the first, and it's known as Brown in Barcelona. Okay, so there's Smith. Smith features again, and Smith on the left-hand side is thinking to himself, Jones owns a Ford car, but I have no idea where Brown is. Okay, so the story goes as follows. So Smith has got evidence that Jones owns a Ford car. Basically, Smith has only ever seen Jones drive around, polish, brag about his Ford car. So as far as Smith's concerned, Jones has always had a Ford car. Now, Smith believes that Jones has a Ford car. That's his belief, because that's all he's ever seen, really, about Jones. Now, someone else is coming into this. Smith doesn't know where his old friend Brown is. Okay, no idea at all where Brown is. But he does think he knows something about Jones. So Smith forms a disjunctive belief. As he is so sure about Jones and that Jones owns a Ford car, so this disjunctive belief goes as follows. Jones owns a Ford car, or Brown is in Barcelona. Now, the strange thing here is that it turns out that Jones has sold his Ford car. So Jones does not have a Ford car, but weirdly enough, Brown is in Barcelona. So can you see that part of his claim of knowledge was actually true, but it's accidentally true. And again, if we're looking at that column on the right-hand side, we're looking for where justification and truth and belief feature. Well, there again, it's all there. But once again, we would say that this is a lucky, true belief and not knowledge. So what has Gettier managed to do? Well, there he is over there saying, I've shown that JTB isn't how we should define knowledge. It's not good enough anymore. It's not sufficient. So Gettier has undermined JTB as a definition of knowledge. And how has he done it? Well, he's illustrated examples of situations in which they all have J, T, and B, but it does not equate to knowledge. Therefore, Gettier's point is JTB is not sufficient for defining knowledge. So where do we go from here with defining knowledge? Well, these Gettier objections were quite damaging to JTB, so we've got to do something. So some philosophers we're going to look at, they actually add something to the JTB. They add another necessary condition. Some philosophers strengthen the justification and make it better. And then others replace the J altogether. Now, we've seen some suggestion of this before. So they replace the justification with something else. We've seen it with reliabilism. Okay, so Gettier has left us in a bit of a mess, and now we need to really think about adapting our definition of knowledge. So what we could do then is to add to this tripartite view, this tripartite definition of JTB. So what might we add to make it better? We'll have a look at the top. We've got these steps going along the top, and that's to illustrate the way that we come to knowledge or we come to a conclusion. We tend to do this in steps or with reasons and premises. Now, sometimes these premises are false and misleading, and this is exactly what's happened in both of Gettier's counterexamples. Now, let's just think. We're looking at false stages, false steps, and the technical term in philosophy for these is a false lemma. So on the right hand side, please have a look in at that. A lemma is a premise or step in an argument that leads to a conclusion. And a false lemma is obviously going to lead to danger. And this is exactly what's happened with Gettier. Have a look again at Smith and Jones on the left hand side. Remember the false step here. The false step comes because the boss tells Smith that Jones will get the job. So that is false information that actually leads Smith to reason in a certain way and come to knowledge in a certain way. If we take that false step away, that false lemma, we may well have knowledge. Have a look at Brown in Barcelona. So remember, Smith thinks that he's got evidence that Jones owns a Ford car. But this evidence is false. And again, it sets up the whole scenario to lead to problems. And this is why Gettier's counter examples really mess up JTB, because they've got these false lemmas in. So what we could do is change our definition to JTBN. So knowledge is a justified true belief with no false lemmas. So what we're doing is adding to JTB. And we're saying knowledge is when we have JTB and no false steps or stages. So we've got no false information that lead to false beliefs. So again, remember, Smith thinks, I've seen Jones in his Ford car, so he must have one. And I've also been told that Jones will get the job. Now, these are false lemmas that lead to false beliefs. And these situations are only saved by luck or chance in the end. So have we actually got there? Is JTB any better than JTB? And is it a sufficient definition for knowledge? Well, I want you to read this and take some notes in your own time. This is Linda Zagzebski's example of, again, Smith and Jones. This time, Jones is a doctor. And she says, absolutely not. JTB is not any better, because sometimes we have a situation where we've got J, T, B, and no false information, no false lemmas, and we still haven't got knowledge. Have a read and take some notes. Okay, so we've been on quite a journey in this video exploring whether JTB is sufficient as a definition of knowledge. And we came across the idea that it's not, and that was really made quite clear through Gettier's counterexamples. Follow the arrows down now to JTBN. We decided to add to JTB, and put in the no false lemmas addition to see whether that worked. And absolutely, it has some really good features about it because it avoids the Gettier counterexamples, and it certainly has some benefits in that sense. However, we could conclude that JTBN still isn't sufficient for knowledge, and this is Linda Zagzebski's point. So really, our journey continues, and next time we'll be looking at other ways of defining knowledge.